We are talking Cubs prospects, previewing Cubs O's with our good friend Ty coming up next. Let's go.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Sam Olbert. I'm a lifelong fan, taking my passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Thank you for being part of the show and making Locked On Cubs your first listen today. And the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, like the video, and comment anything below. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we don't want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome in, everybody. We have Ty Lewan here. Really good Cubs guy to talk to, knows his prospects, knows his Cubs, had a podcast. And we love having him in, especially when we are missing 50% of the program. Ty, I don't want to ask you how you're doing. I don't. You know what I mean? I want to get straight to it. If that's all right, I just did a council. If that's okay with you, I want to put you on the spot to start our show. I know you're here. I know you want to talk prospects, and we will in a minute. But I just want to ask you, as we're recording here, July 8th, about 7:30 Central Time, are you done with this season? Is it over for you, or are you still going to turn on the game at 3:35 West Coast time tomorrow? And if they're up 3-0, are you going to have a little pep in your step, thinking that they could turn this around? Floor is yours, sir.
Well, I want to congratulate you and Matt on over 2 years of doing this program, which I
don't
love
accept
the word
it.
Program. I'll give it to you anyways. Back to your question though.
No, thank you, Ty. I'm just kidding with you.
Absolutely. I think where my head is at is a question that I've asked myself actually frequently over the last 2 weeks. And I actually want to throw it back to you after this. Yep. But it's a question of what happened last year. Could that have been not the best thing in Jed's eyes based on where he was taking this organization? And a lot of people will have a lot of opinions, of course, on that question, of course, because you have a situation where the team was likely out of it, came out of nowhere and came back, forced Jed's hand to then say, okay, I was going to trade Bellinger. I was possibly going to trade some other names as well to continually build up this farm system that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Sure. And all of a sudden, good things happen. The show was obviously very, very happy about it as well, and so are the fans. And so when I'm looking at this season, I'm saying it seems like it wasn't prepared to be a successful season based on the things that we talked about when it came with this team. And that's kind of where my head's at, man, is that I felt like this team wasn't prepared to have a successful, long season. And the toughest part of their season, of course, happened probably at the worst time of the year. And 100%. Now this team, like you and Matt allude to a lot, which is we're stuck in the middle. You talk about contract situations. You talk about prospects. You talk about trying to maybe speed guys up. It's a very sticky situation, man.
Yeah. So yes or no? Are you done with this team? Because if you're going to be on the show, you got to puff your chest out. You don't think I get a lot of flack from people when I say it? I want an answer.
I'm done. I'm done. Okay. It's over. Okay. It's over. This stretch and everything that's coming up. Yes, maybe as a podcast guest, I probably should have answered the question. But
no, I agree. I agree with everything you said.
Conversation for sure.
It's so frustrating too because we know that they're not we know they're not a great team, but we know they're not as bad as they've performed. And like you said, I thought the most important thing you said is they performed bad at probably the time they needed to be at their best to bank in wins. To answer your question back to me, I don't think Jed's going to be fooled by that. Last year, the team had such a high run differential. They had signs that they were going to turn this around. There were signs that there was a good ball club in there. There was absolutely no signs of that this season. So what we do is we transition and we hope. And we hope for next year. We hope for the year after. And we've been told, Ty, that this is one of the top systems in all the land. And when I think about a top system, not to give away the second segment, but I think about teams that have Gunnar Henderson on it. Those organizations, Adley Rutschman and those type guys. There are none of those guys in this system. And I'm starting to get a little bit of concern. So let's talk about Matt Shaw. Let's talk about future game guys. Let's talk about Shaw. Let's talk about Casey. And let's talk about Moises. I believe it's Ballesteros. And if it's not, that's on me. Leave Ty alone. Go ahead, man.
Well, it's okay. So the thing that happens now, right, with anything that goes on, especially like from a social media standpoint, is any highlight is, exuberated and everyone thinks it's this player is now ready to step on the big league field, right? So I want to preface with this. All these guys we talk about, there is still so much development that has to happen. Everybody wanted to talk about PCA not being up right away. He gets up, he struggles. These guys are going to struggle. It's very hard for these guys to come up and produce at a high level right away. And that's what people need to understand. So when we talk about some of these guys, understand that, look, like there's a reason that they have not been brought up to the big league level. And it's because maybe there are still some holes in their game. So let's start with Matt Shaw. Right now, he's owning a 251, 361, 428 slash line with a 789 OPS. When you and I talked about, and Matt talked about Matt Shaw on our last show, I believe that was back in May, there were concerns that you were bringing up. And all of a sudden, it seemed like for a couple of weeks there, he really picked it up, right? So like in the last 28 days, he's had a 346, 419, and a 654 slug with over 1,000 OPS. That is tremendous to see. And what that tells me, Sam, and I think that should tell a lot of people, is that this guy is going to be able to adjust. And one other thing to note, at the AA level, you may even see higher velocities than you would even at the AAA level, and then in comparison to the big league level. So I felt like that's one guy that's really stood out here thus far. Yep. And what's been interesting too is that he's been primarily playing third base. So they've really kind of set him at that spot moving forward.
Can I interject real quick on Shaw?
Yeah.
He's the guy. I know Horton's the number one prospect. He's my number one prospect. I think he's the best bat by far in the system, and I think he's got the best chance. I was taken by surprise. I thought he'd crush AA and would be knocking on the door, if not in the bigs already. But I haven't given up on him, and I think he's the closest thing they have to a blue chip guy. And the reason why is I love guys, especially at a young age, that are willing to go to the opposite field. You see guys like Dansby that just are pulling the ball nonstop, and Matt Shaw's natural swing is going the opposite way. And I really like his swing, and I still think that by 2025, very, very early, he might be part of the Cubs. We don't know what's going on with him. He hasn't been in the lineup a while. Some people are saying it's from a collision that he had. I don't want to report on it because I don't know for a fact what's going on, but hopefully he'll be back soon. And I think he'll be in AAA pretty soon because, like you said, he's been red hot. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. And one other thing too to say is, like, from a AAA perspective, when it comes to the numbers, there's not a lot of guys that necessarily are flying off the table. We'll talk about Owen Casey here in a little bit. So generally speaking, like, I can see him getting an opportunity here faster than probably even we expect. One guy that we did mention, of course, that will be he's going to be a participant sort of in the showcase version of the Futures game coming up here, which is a name that is screaming across Cubs Twitter, which is Moises Ballesteros. Again, we're hoping that we pronounce that properly, but I believe that is the proper pronunciation. Look, this guy's been very, very good, Sam, but a little background on him. 5'7", okay? Nothing against the shorter crowd, but again, when it comes to his primary position being a catcher, and right now being at 20 years old, not necessarily having, the 70 grade tools behind the dish, you can't really put him over at first base. So now you're looking at a primary DH, right? So a lot of these things are starting to hinder the development of these players, unfortunately. But, are we willing to put that to the side, let him develop at the big league level a little bit more behind the dish, add a defensive catcher like, we talk about with Nito or some other veteran backup. But looking at him right now, 328, 359, 459 slash line thus far with an 818 OPS in AAA. Look, the guy rakes, and he's going to be a talented big league hitter. They call him, I love the term, a natural hitter. You talk about that a little bit with Matt Shaw. Ballesteros has those qualities as well. So folks that are thinking, they saw a video of him throwing a guy out the other day. He's only really thrown out 11% of the hitters thus far, 11% of the runners here thus far. So again, some things that need to develop, but that's another name that I'm excited about, but still some things to come.
So the thing I like about him is, like you said, I like guys that hit for average. I know average doesn't matter to 90% of the baseball crowd anymore, but that ain't me. Do you think he can catch at this level? Or are we talking about another guy that's going to be positionless, another tweener? If this guy is going to be in the lineup, we need him to be able to catch at some point. Is that something that you think he can work through and it's just not ready yet? Or is it like a Schwarber situation? Remember, he came up as a catcher and it just was like, he's not going to catch.
Yeah, I think the thing that we all really have to recognize is the youth, right? So he's 20 years old. He's not 21 till November. So a lot of these things where you're seeing him obviously move up quickly is hitting. And let's be honest, man, if you can hit, they're going to find a spot for you. Now, from a catching position wise, right? There's some other names out there like Soderstrom. I forgot it. It's Soderstrom, I believe is how you properly pronounce his name. He's with the Oakland A's. He was a guy kind of similar as well. They've kind of plugged him in over at first base and a little bit around DH as well. I can see him being a big league catcher. I just think that it needs to come with a little patience. And the problem we have there, Sam, is that is patience going to be willingly accepted by Cubs fans and the organization right now because it's in a flux.
Right. And that's kind of the whole ordeal is that's why it's really hard to kind of rebuild and be really good at the same time because guys just don't come up and rake. I mean, even Gunnar Henderson, who we're going to see, his first year, he was still good because he's a star, but you look at the jump from year 2 and then you look at the jump, I guess technically he had a cup of coffee in year 1, but you know what I mean? The jump, it took even him like a year to really jump. So, CJ Abrams is a guy I like to use as an example. It takes a while, and I think, people are going to have a lot less patience because we thought this was going to be a really good team. Anybody else, Owen Casey, you want to highlight on him a little bit?
I really love the way that Casey has handled this season, right? Because, they've been very respectful of his development. Which I appreciate, which you're not speeding across. Like PCA, for example, and we'll just touch on him just really quick. Like you kind of look at the similar numbers across the board when it comes to him in AAA in comparison to the major leagues. Now the home runs and all that, of course, will come around, of course, as he develops. But Casey, I think Casey, they've said like, let's give him a little bit more time, and I'm glad they have. What I actually found to be very impressive with Casey was runners in scoring position. So right now, 75 ABs to the season thus far. He's got a 293 average, but a 443 OBP, 533 slug, 976 OPS. Strikeouts are a little high at 29, which kind of, that can be taken in different ways. But you talk about you're looking for things with these guys because you can look at the stat lines and say, oh, wow, he's got an 830 OPS. But what is he actually doing? You talked about it the other day, may even been last night, Sam, I think it was, that you talked about it where you said, there's guys in this lineup where you look at their numbers and you say, oh, any average baseball fan would look at Seiya Suzuki's numbers or Cody Bellinger's numbers and say they're doing just great, right? How can Cub fans ever be pissed at these guys? Well, the problem lies within what really matters, and the word scoring kind of matters in the game of baseball. And so that was really exciting to see because this guy is taking advantage of the opportunities that are there for him. And it's going to make it really interesting. And I know we can do a whole segment just on the contract situation right now with the Cubs. You got a lot of names in there that are blocking him, and Jed or whomever that will be here in the future has a really big, big decision coming up.
We're going to discuss more prospects. I got one more question for you and then preview Cubs O's coming up next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Ty, you and I, we both love sports. We love them so much, we don't want them to stop. But the NBA playoffs are over. The NHL playoffs are over. I don't know if you're a soccer guy. I am. And baseball's going on. That's great, but our team's not very good. So the sports just aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. The Cubs play the Orioles at 5:35 p.m. Central Tuesday, and you can hear every pitch on the hometown broadcast on Sirius XM by searching Cubs on the SXM app. Ty, let's close very quickly the prospect part of this with, you've talked about Casey, you've talked about Shaw. PCA, I think we all, people know him now. They know there's some growth there. They know what needs to happen. I do think it's going to happen. I just think it's going to be, a while. Is there anybody that you want to highlight? And it doesn't have to be positive. If you're new to this show, sometimes we're negative on this program. Sometimes we even get accused of being pessimistic. Is there anybody that you're really excited about or that you're really concerned about that isn't on anybody's radar? I know I'm a little concerned about Kevin Alcantara, but I'll let you go because you know more about this than I.
Well, Kevin has been, it's just the home run baller. It's a long ball or nothing with a guy like that. And I think that it's going to be a very interesting watch to see if this is a type of guy that gets traded just because of the tools. A guy like Jefferson Rojas hasn't really looked as good as of late. We of course saw all the videos on him as he popped up right from the beginning. He's got a 261 average, but he's at a 313 OBP and a 348 slug. So a 661 OPS overall. So I'd like to see those numbers come up as well. Otherwise, like from, the arms and those other things, like Cade needs to come back because that's going to be really the name that I'm looking forward to the most when he comes back and seeing if he can make an impact here by the end of the year. Otherwise, I would say probably Rojas is a guy right now that I really like to see pick it up because, again, he could possibly be a trade target as well.
Sure. All right, well, that was a good update. I don't feel great about it in terms of where things are headed, but I still feel really strongly about Shaw, and that's kind of where my hope's leaning. Time to transition to the big league level where the Cubs have a pretty difficult assignment this week. They will face one of the best teams in baseball, the Baltimore Orioles. Pitching's matchups are a bit weird. On ESPN, they have the Cubs going in order, but MLB still says TBD. So I don't know if the Cubs have officially announced it yet. My guess is that they might do something to try and find a way to have Steele throw on Friday. So maybe bullpen day, Imanaga, Tyone against the Orioles or something along that line. But maybe they trot out the regular guys. I don't know. For the Baltimore Orioles, it'll be Dean Kremer, who will throw. He's just been he was just activated off the IL. I think this is his second start since coming back. Good pitcher, pretty good stuff. Wednesday's a familiar face, Corbin Burns. All he's done is go 9-3 with a 2.32. And then on Thursday, another guy that's having a nice year for them is Albert Suarez. The Orioles are really tough, Ty. I mean, Gunnar Henderson, Rutschman, Mountcastle, Santander, all their young players. They pitch. I don't really have high hopes for this series. They're weirdly, you'd think because of Henderson, but they're better against lefties than they are righties. I think that's because of Rutschman as a switch hitter. He's way better from the right side than the left. So hopefully Imanaga will be able to keep it in the park. It's a big park, especially to left field. It's very big. They extended it, but do you have anything you want to say about this series? Any confidence here? My gut is just try not to get swept and then go win 3 out of 4 against St. Louis. I think that's your best case to have a decent week. But what say you?
Yeah, I would say Kremer's start is the one that I'm kind of looking at and saying, if you can kind of just grab that one, that would
Yeah.
be ideal.
Yeah.
Because Albert Suarez has had a very, very nice year. He's
Yep.
been a very big surprise, but he's a vet. He owns a 5-2 record with a 2.48 ERA. He's had solid start after solid start. You got to grab that game 1, in my opinion, because game 2, there's no way, there's just no way that you're grabbing that one against Burns. He's been an AL Cy Young this year. He probably will win the Cy Young based on how talented he's been. So personally, I'm looking at game 1. I don't know about you, Sam, but I'm looking at game 1. If you can grab that, I feel like you may be able to win game 3. That's my thought.
I'm looking at game 1 of 2025. That's what I'm looking at. The Cubs open in Japan in 2025 against the Dodgers. Probably, that'll be wild. That's where my mind's at. Game
Ricketts
1
is looking forward to it too as well. But
I think you probably said it. Matt and I have gone away from doing, hey, this game's going to be hard, because every game writes his own story. You never know which game you're going to get. You're going to get some balls to fall, and it'll come down to the bullpen. But the Cubs and Hoyer talked about this. They've just dug themselves a huge hole this week. You were hoping before the All-Star break that this was going to be a week, Ty, where you said, man, 3-4 would be great. Let's just get to the break. We're up a couple games, and we'll come back and we'll flex at home against Arizona and Milwaukee. But now you've put yourself in a position that if you want to have any life going into the All-Star break and coming home, you probably have to win 4 of these 7 at least to cut down, because the Cardinals, even though their run differential isn't great, they're playing pretty good baseball. Their Cubs are now, I think, 6.5 behind the Cardinals, and maybe 5.5 back of San Diego. Oh, it just makes
oh boy. Yeah, I saw the buildup in your face there as you were going through the numbers. Look, man, this offense from the O's is incredible. They're number 1 in home runs, number 1 in slug. You talked about it earlier with Canman yards. Well, they're still number 1 in home runs, right?
It's wild.
I think it's insane. Top 5 in average and doubles. They don't steal a whole lot. They actually steal less than the Cubs, which is very shocking to me. Did not expect that one. But look, like, Westberg's really taken off this year. Kierstad has looked unbelievable, and we will likely see him in this series, especially if they move Steele. And so I think one of the things that we have you, in your opinion, Sam, like, do you think that you've seen a little bit more momentum from the bullpen, specifically talking about Porter Hodge, Luke Little, and this Biggie guy who is going to be very interesting to see? I'm excited about that. I think if I'm watching really one thing in this series, besides hopefully some W's, I would like to see, can they show that they are at that level? Because, man, if they show life, that changes things a little bit.
No, yeah. Yes, I've seen some interesting growth, particularly from Hodge. Everything that I've heard about Hunter Biggie has been good. The question for him is the same question it's been for Palencia. It's the same question it is for Little. You got great velocity. You got great stuff. Can you do it at the big league level, 5 out of 6 times, 8 out of 9 times, instead of having it be a 50-50 coin flip? But yeah, one thing about being a bad baseball team is that you have a chance to play games that aren't the end-all be-all, and so you get a chance to develop these guys. And maybe the second half of this season, we could turn Luke Little, Porter Hodge, and Hunter Biggie, and whoever else it is, into a force heading into next year, so we feel more comfortable about things next season. But what I've learned is that the bullpen is so volatile and so unpredictable that it's really even hard to do that. But to your point, it's still very important from the pitching lab and factory to see these guys improve and get better. And I am seeing signs of that going forward. So we'll see what happens with the Cubs and Orioles. I'm not overly optimistic, but apparently I never am. And so hopefully we could win a series. And if they win a series, I'll be excited for the Cardinals. And to win that series, they're probably going to need a really good start from their lone all-star, Shota Imanaga. And we're going to talk about him coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. Pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and then watch the winnings roll in. Shota Imanaga is an all-star, but if I were betting on something Through Prize Picks, I'm probably taking Adley Rutschman to take him deep. Baseball season is well underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry. Prize Picks is really simple to play, with your entries taking less than 60 seconds to submit, turning $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps of your screen. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKDOWNMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's a first deposit match up to $100 by using code LOCKDOWNMLB. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. This episode is also brought to you by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Cubs, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. Playoffs, it's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals, a tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that big parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com. That's tnusa.com. See the link in this episode description below. All right, Ty. We are back here on Locked On Cubs, and we have an all-star to talk about. Every team has an all-star to talk about, but Shota Imanaga is a deserving all-star, and I'm glad that they got this right. I think if Justin Steele was healthy all year, he probably would be joining Imanaga, but the Cubs are 12-4, and Imanaga's 16 starts. As bad as this season has gone without him, they might be one of the very, very worst teams in the league record-wise. I think he's been awesome this year. He's been better than advertised, and I'm happy you got this honor.
And it really is. It's been a dull season for this team. Shota really provided that spark at certain times, even when he struggled and everyone thought that he would fall off. He came right back, and I've seen that now. Of course, you talk about like Steele on your show last night, where you talked about that bulldog mentality. Shota shows a lot of emotion on the mound, and what he's done is he's brought the fans to love him, and that's really, at the end of the day, that's all it's about. And also, number one is 1.B, I would like to call it, is winning, and he does that, right? So I still can't believe that contract. I still can't believe they got him at that number.
Yeah.
But you know what? Whatever the Cubs did to get him, hopefully they do that with some other guys that are coming over from Japan here in the coming years. But it's very exciting news.
I think with Imanaga too, like, he's actually pitched better than his numbers, because his numbers are really from two awful starts. And that's, to me, that's the opposite of what we talk about with the offense, right? Like, if you're going to have just two awful games, that's fine. And then you're going to be really good otherwise. That works. With the offense, it's like it's 2 months of being really bad, and then you're good out of nowhere. Like, Imanaga helps the Cubs win. You know what I mean? He's really been, to me, the most impactful guy on the team in terms of winning this season. And even his last two starts in San Fran and against Philly, he went 6, he gave up 3 earned, and he made some mistakes and stuff, but especially the one against the Giants, those easily could have been, 1-run start. So I'm really excited to watch him pitch against the Orioles. I hope he finishes the first half strong, because he's been awesome. Anything else, Ty, before we get on our way that you'd like to add? I appreciate you coming on without Matt Cozy, who we'll be back next week, and people were asking in the comments where he was. He's away. So,
nobody knows, actually.
Yeah, nobody knows where he is.
Nobody knows where Matt is.
But anything else on your end, Cubs wise, life wise? Any critiques, Sam Olber wise?
Well, I thank you as always, because I know that you guys do not have to let me come on the show, so I appreciate it. I think at the end of the day, as Cubs fans, we thought our expectations were much, obviously, higher than what the results have been. And, would it be very, very interesting to watch this team turn it around? Yes. I'm a firm believer, as I should have been earlier, a firm believer that they won't. But I think that maybe some interesting things. I'm very, very interested to see what happens here over the next couple of weeks and what this team may look like, even moving into August.
We have you on the show because you do a great job, Ty. Thanks for coming on. And thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Cubs. You give us 20 to 30 minutes and we'll give you all things Cubs with a laugh or two along the way. Be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube, smash the like button for the algorithm, and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. I'm Sam Olber. He's Ty Lewan. And this has been another episode of Locked On Cubs.